You're listening to the Reality of It All podcast, candid conversations about today's hot topics. And now here's your host, Tracy Osborne. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. You know, one of the things about my past personally is that I have been with a lot of alcoholics, and I've been around addicts and all of that kind of thing. And, you know, when you're the sober person in a relationship with an addict or an alcoholic, it is rough, very rough. Leslie MacNabb is joining me today, and she, she is going to talk with us about, you know, loving somebody with an addiction and how to work through that and, you know, recover that relationship. So, Leslie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Tracy.
Excuse me. Well, you know, I'm happy to have you here because this is such a very important topic, especially, you know, for me, being the sober person that has been in multiple relationships with an alcoholic. It's not easy. It's not easy watching that person you love go down that hole, at all. So I'm glad we can be here and have this conversation.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster for sure. When I met my partner, he was sober. He wasn't actively using. However, he didn't have any recovery supports or anything in place to be taking care of his mental health or anything like that. So the willpower ran out. And right. Then I got to see this whole different side. And I actually didn't know what I was seeing for a bit because it looked like debilitating anxiety and depression, which was also there and present, untreated. And he wasn't using when in my presence. So it was like whenever I saw him, he was just super sick. He was just like, couldn't get out of bed. He just felt awful. He had these major life things going on. And I was like, where is that guy that I met? Where is he? I think he's in there, but I don't know how to bring him back. Yeah.
So
it's scary.
It is scary. I know with some of my relationships, they turn violent when they would get drunk, you know, and it would get to the point where I'd be like, God, just hurry up and pass out already, will you? You know, and that's no way to live. That's no way to be in a relationship. So let's start with, if we're in that kind of a relationship with somebody who is battling an addiction, you know, we don't want to necessarily end the relationship. We want to help them, but how can we help them? Because until they're ready to help themselves, there's not much we can do.
Yeah, great question. Well, it's not going to be the answer that people want to hear right away, but it really is starting with yourself and recognizing, because I got so wrapped up in his life every day. We don't live together, but every day I would wake up and think like, is he going to be okay today? What's his day going to be like? What phone calls am I going to get? And panic. And so I was just really caught up in what was going on with him so much that like, it was hard for me to focus at work, and it was hard for me to be present with my kids. I was taking his phone calls no matter what was going on, you know, interrupting everything else. And so I started to learn about, actually at the same time I was going through a yoga teacher training. So I was learning all these tools to help get myself grounded breathing practices, meditations, all these things that were really helping me. And that really was what got me through it, I think, physically, and mentally, emotionally, all of those things. And getting yourself to safety, like you were saying, sometimes it turns violent. That was not my case. Like I said, he was never using around me, so I don't really know what that would have looked like had he been doing that. But also he wasn't ever like, he didn't put me down, anything like that, even when he was using. So there's so much that, like, is it the substance that's making them act that way? Or is it like some other stuff that they're going to need to deal with, even if they get sober, even if they get into recovery? Is this still not going to be a good, safe relationship for me to be in? So there's some things to kind of like weigh out there. And thankfully I had experienced him sober. So I was like, this is not his true essence where he is right now. Like, he's in there somewhere, and it was really good. And I really want us to be able to get back there. So like I said, maybe not the answer that people want to hear right away, but working on yourself, being the example. We're not going to be able to control what the other person's doing, but continuing to show up for yourself and make sure that you are safe, and start trusting yourself that you're going to take care of yourself no matter what's going on with the other person.
Those are great points. You absolutely need to take care of you first. Even though they can be a handful, to say the least.
It's right in your face sometimes.
It's right in your face. Many times I've picked them up from the yard or picked one up from the, they passed out on the toilet or, whatever. And so, it can get messy. It can get pretty ugly. And so taking care of yourself has to be a priority. For sure. I completely agree on that. And I know what you mean about, your life kind of ends up revolving around them. Excuse me, with my late husband, when we would plan things, it was always, well, we have to make sure we're home by about 5, because that's when he has to, about the latest he can start drinking. Otherwise he's going to end up being up all night, because he had this pattern.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it really put a damper on things. It was like, okay, well, we can't go to this function because we're going to be out too late, or we can't do this, or we can't do that, or, he's going to have to pack a cooler and bring it with him. And it was awful. It really was. Mm-hmm. So what do we do? I mean, obviously, if you're in a situation where they do tend to get violent, then it's probably best you get out of that situation.
Yeah.
It's probably not a healthy relationship to be in. But, when they are ready for help or they are getting help, how can we best support them so that they can continue in their sobriety and be successful in their sobriety? And at the same time, we have to rebuild that relationship because trust is gone. There's damage done there.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So if they're getting to a place where they're seeking help, what I came to realize is that I needed my own recovery. And like I said, that taking care of yourself, that's always there. But that I was recovering from this too, that was traumatic at times. And I would have like those post-traumatic episodes where, like, if something happened or he said something or didn't answer my call, my body would go into this, like, something's wrong, when it really wasn't. So like I had a lot of things to kind of work through myself. Learning about what addiction is, what it does to the brain, that it's not a character defect, that it is it really takes over a person's brain, and they will do whatever it takes to get their substance or their drug of choice in order to cope with whatever's going on in life. The last thing my partner wanted was to hurt me, to hurt his daughter, emotionally. Like I said, he was never physically violent, but so he was using the drug as medicine just to cope with his anxiety, his depression, that sort of thing. And then it took over. And then it was like, I have to have this. And every day, like you said, was scheduled around it for him. And then when he did reach out for help and he entered himself an inpatient, then I was like, okay, now what? Now I'm here by myself. What do I need to do? So really establishing my self-care, and also learning that there were some things that I was doing that were not supporting recovery, enabling in a way, giving him money. And like I said, always being there for every single call, trying to fix everything. And we had been through a couple episodes. So he had gone through one treatment center and then came out a few months later. There were no supports in place. And then he relapsed and then went back into another one. So I was like, we're not doing this. We have to do something different. Like, we're not going to do this over and over and over again. So I really needed to see that he was doing things differently. That's really what started building back trust. He was very communicative about what he was learning. I was learning more about addiction, and releasing some of those behaviors that really weren't serving him, weren't serving me, weren't serving our relationship. And then eventually we got to a point where we started to rebuild it together. And, doing that, like, what did that look like? Well, I wasn't going to be spending money on like his bills anymore. I might pay for a date, but he's also going to be paying for a date. And he's rebuilding his whole life, like jobs and all this stuff. He lost his car in the process. So I started to see all that he was going through to rebuild his own life. That started to build trust. Like, okay, he's really taking this seriously. It's different this time. So it's really a process between both people to start to rebuild this together. And then you get to a point where, he's living recovery now, and he's a chemical dependency counselor. Not that everybody will go that path, but like
right.
it spoke to him that he was able to support other people when he was in treatment. And then together, just really coming back together and creating a new relationship. And that's one thing that might be scary because, like you said, the patterns, like the schedule. There is some comfort in that, and that, like, I know what's going to happen next. And sometimes in recovery, we don't always know what's going to happen next, like what's around the corner. So, getting to that point where, like, the trust is built and you're ready to move forward together.
Yeah. You definitely, those patterns, just have me thinking with my ex-husband. I knew the second he hit, like this level, his mood or whatever would just, it would just flip. There was just something. And I would be like, okay, telling everybody in the house, he's in that mood. He wants to pick a fight. He doesn't care with who. Don't look at him. Don't talk to him. Don't answer him. Don't say a word. He's in that mood. And so, when he would get in that mode, we all just kind of walked on eggshells. And, that's not healthy for anybody. But something else I was thinking too was not only do we enable them, but we shame them, and, how do we deal with not only the shame that we've put on them, but the shame we feel ourselves? We have that anger. And, with those trust issues, it's, how do we stop searching through the phone or searching through the house or, checking the eyes, checking the breath? Are you using, how do we trust that? And I guess it's just one of those things where we have to build it up slowly, but how can we really, I don't know, make that shift in our own minds that, okay, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, those are some of those things you're mentioning about checking the phone, checking, I knew all his passwords and everything, and looking over the shoulder and that sort of thing. And what was that really doing? It wasn't helping me. It was just like, because if you're really looking for something, you're going to find something, even if they're not doing anything intentionally, or like, you're going to find something. So if that's what you're looking for, you're going to find it. So those are some of those behaviors that I too had to release and not check to see like who he's talking to on Facebook or whatever. So yeah, time, definitely. And also putting in the work and the practice of setting those boundaries, not only with them, but with yourself. Like I'm going to turn my phone ringer off at night, and I'm not going to check the phone calls when I'm in a work meeting. Starting to put in these boundaries of what you can do, and boundaries are really for you. It's not rules for the other person. So what that would mean is like a rule would be, you're not going to go hang out with that other person. That just gets you into trouble, that sort of thing. A boundary would be, I'm not going to go hang out with you and that person because I don't feel good when we're in that situation together. And I don't like seeing you. I don't like seeing you that way. So that might be a boundary. And you don't necessarily have to say that out loud, but like, no, I'm just not going to go do that tonight, and setting boundaries for yourself can really start to help curb some of those behaviors that you were talking about. You asked something before there at the beginning that I can't remember that I wanted to address, but yeah, those behaviors specifically of the things that we can do. So we don't have control over them, but we do have control over what we're doing.
What about things like Al-Anon, those kind of groups? Are they helpful for the support, as far as for us, being the non-addicts?
Yeah, they can be. They can be for some people. I went to a couple, and it was nice to know that I wasn't alone in this, like seeing people who were experiencing this. It didn't stick with me. It wasn't something that I really wanted to continue on. Like I said, I had the yoga practice, the yoga community. I had some different spiritual programs that I had in place, and those programs that's what they are. They're really spiritual. But I think there is also some antiquated messages that are spread through those programs. And they're not run by professionals. So that's the other thing. You never know who you're going to meet in there, or who's running the meeting. But, I think there's not a great explanation for what they mean by certain things. But like I said, some people do find those comforting and like to stay in them for a long time.
Yeah.
But there are lots of other programs out there that are available now, and lots of books. And that's why I'm here doing what I'm doing, because I saw that need for it. I was like, but where's the help for the partners, for the loved ones? When my partner went into treatment, I had to ask for a meeting with his counselor to talk through some things. It wasn't, some treatment facilities offer family programming, some don't. So that's why I'm here. That's why I keep showing up and talking. And I have a community starting, I don't know when this is going to air, but it's going to be starting in March, which will be gatherings of people online. And there will be a mix of like education and a mix of like sharing and coaching and that sort of thing, so that people can have support, but also be learning as well.
That's great. This will probably air. Let's see, we're recording this mid-January, so it's going to air sometime in January. But let me know when that support group goes live, and I'll definitely make sure we get it out there.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's very, very important. something else that I want to touch on real quick is the codependency.
Mm-hmm.
So, they tell us that if we are enabling them, we are supporting them, whatever, we are codependent. There's something wrong with us now. Do you find that to be correct?
So when I first heard the word codependence, I was like, there's no way that's me. I'm super independent. I make my own money. I do all these chores for myself.
Yeah.
But what I learned is there was some codependency in my emotional well-being, emotional part, in that if he was sad or having a bad day, then I felt sad and was having a bad day. And for me, the healing came from separating that, and that it was okay for me to be okay when he wasn't okay. And it was okay for me to have a good day when he wasn't. And then that actually helped me be a better support to him, because I was at a higher energy level and I was able to be more empathetic and more understanding. But if I came down to where he was when he was suffering and struggling, then I couldn't be a support to him. I had no patience and I took it all in. So, I think there's still a lot of research to be done. Some people fall in line or relate to the term codependent. And the thing is, it makes sense. It makes sense, our behavior sometimes, because we want to help our loved one. So I don't want anyone here to feel shame because they're going to all these lengths for their partner, for their loved one, trying to help them in whatever way they can. So I think that's important, and kind of finding that balance and that recipe, like what is it that's going to help you help you get to a place where you're feeling whole and that you're going to be okay no matter what, but also supporting your loved one in some way. And like we were talking about boundaries earlier, they're personal. So what may feel comfortable for me may not feel comfortable for you. And that's okay. So we're kind of all at a different level. So having support, having someone to bounce that off of, to check in, that's really important to kind of figure out what that is.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Before we wrap up, I want you to tell us about your book. Yeah. And that's why you're here.
Yeah. So I wrote an ebook, and it's called Accelerate Joy, Hitting the Worry Brakes When Your Loved One is in Recovery. Because like I said, there were lots of practices. I would get very anxious about what was going on with him. And it was kind of like, okay, I know all these practices. What's helping me here? What's helping me stay grounded, helping me continue on with my day? And so it combines both, talk about recovery and like we've done here, but also has some embodiment practices. So there are links to some yoga practices, some breath practices, some meditations, things that can really help to invite in some more calm into your life when you're feeling like you're on a roller coaster, things are chaotic. Even if your loved one goes into recovery, like I said, there's a lot to rebuild there. So there's still a lot of ups and downs in recovery, and your loved one is learning how to cope without substances or without a certain addictive behavior. And that's definitely not easy to do, from what I've heard. Yeah.
Well, just think of any kind of behaviors that we try to change in ourselves. It's not easy. And then you have something that's even stronger of an urge or a pull. So I definitely, it's not an easy journey for them at all. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today. I think it's important that we get these topics out in the open and, let people know that it's okay to talk about them. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And that's just it. When I started recovering out loud and, and talking about it, I'm connected with 4 other people just in my neighborhood that I knew, but they were like, hey, I'm going through something like this too. And like that alone made it so meaningful for me to keep sharing. I was in a place to share. And when people get to that place where they are willing to share, like it really is a ripple effect and people feel supported and feel seen, and we can all support each other. So thank you so much for having this opportunity.
Absolutely. Listeners, I will have all of Leslie's information down in the show notes. Just go to therealityofitall.com and pull up her episode, and all her contact information, the link to her ebook, everything will be there for you. So again, thank you so much for joining us, Leslie.
Thank
and
you,
listeners,
Tracy.
Thank you as always for joining us, and we'll talk to you in the next show. That's it for today's show. Thanks for listening. Be sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and TikTok.